It can
right.
be a real pain in the butt.
You're doing
Yeah.
one of these.
Dude was right. It held.
Road's probably not going to send everybody, some breaded nuts, but
Yeah.
this is such a treat to do a follow up as well after the build. And I got to say, I checked up, I rewatched the video, and it's fantastic. I thought it was great. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for doing it. What did you think about it? What was your kind of feedback from it?
So, when I first was talking to you and I'm like, yeah, but will it hold? Am I going to have to brace? And you're like, nah, it'll hold. And I got it up and I'm like, yeah, dude was right. It held. It's one of those, yeah, a 7 foot tall booth with weight hanging off the top. Of course, you've got the pipe that's obviously strong, but you can bend that stuff no problem. No, man, that thing held up. I was really impressed going through. Also, the uh, simplicity of putting it together was pretty mind numbing at that point too. Like I couldn't believe how quickly and easily it just went together.
Well, kudos to you. I mean, for a first build, putting that thing together, yeah, it looked like it went smooth. And I noticed you didn't do any bracing, and
No,
it seemed like a good intersection of price and value and strength, right? You don't need this thing to be bomber and to withstand, Godzilla in your studio, right?
no, and that was the thing because I actually built it for my co-host on my morning show. And he's been looking and getting into voiceover, and that's one of the things I wanted. At one, he could disassemble it easily, which you don't get with voiceover booths. And two, that it would hold up, like it wasn't going to fall over when kids ran into it and stuff like that. So it was kind of a marrying the two of those together, while still having a booth that works for voiceover. And that was the thing that really paid off on it. It's when I did the tests in the kitchen, it was like, wow, just I think it came to $280 all in, which is mind-blowingly cheap when it comes to a voiceover booth.
Yeah, because I saw the what was it? Snap Studio was the one you were comparing. I know it was
Yeah.
you had the one that fits tightly around your head, but then you also had the Snap Studio, which was cool to see. Is that popular of an option?
Oh, yeah, well, it's kind of the option, right? Like, there's not a lot of you've always been able to build one yourself with ABS or PVC pipe.
Yeah.
The problem with that, and that's one of the biggest things that kind of floored me, is if you want ABS or PVC to be strong, you have to glue it. So you have a big box sitting in the middle of your room that you can't take apart.
Right.
And that's the one thing that, like, I know a lot of people don't want that sitting in their living room. So this is why the Maker Pipe solution was the perfect one for me, and for Jay's, because he can take it apart and throw it under a sofa, or put it up just to do a quick voiceover session, take it apart. It's literally under 5 minutes to put it together. Again, it's not rocket science whatsoever. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
As someone who's taken apart and put together a lot of conduit structures, as you might imagine, it it's surprisingly easy. You leave the connectors on like the posts, the verticals,
Yeah.
right? A little bit of turn, and it's all come in and you can pack it flat. So it works
Yeah,
for that as
I
well.
actually have a few ideas when things calm down, meaning at some point if I ever lose my day job and I'm actually able to focus on this, I do have some builds. I've got some B-roll builds for doing B-roll, sliders, camera sliders. That's the one that I'm really looking. That's gonna take a while because you got to sand all the pipe down for that to make sure it's nice and smooth.
Right.
And I also want to do a camera rig. I want to do a full-on camera rig with lights come off it. So basically, plop it down, and you've got a camera rig. You've got a full-on studio setup right there. I'm gonna attach an interface to it. Like I'll have a place to hang wires or cables, so XLRs and all that. Yeah, it's gonna be just a whole big YouTube studio stand. It's gonna
Nice.
be awesome. Yeah, and you can just take it up to the living room if you wanna do, some vlogging from your living room. Plop it down, turn it on, and go.
Right.
It's gonna be awesome.
That's a game changer because all this gear and setting things up. What a
Well, it's getting the lighting, getting all of that stuff, but this will just be hanging off of it. So, I mean, with the weight of a camera and a couple lights, and pretty much good to go, just making sure it's stable. So
Right.
that will be the next big one. I think it's going to be a YouTuber camera setup. I think will be the next one.
Yeah. Are you familiar with DSLR camera shooter, Caleb?
No, I don't know Caleb.
Oh, man. There's a channel that I mean, this whole desk that we're sitting at, he did this video and it was a complete game changer for us to learn. Let me see if I can bring this up because he did he did one. There you are. Yeah, I was watching the video. DSLR video shooter. And this guy, Caleb.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he's a total
Guys,
DIY
welcome back
guy.
to the channel.
Shout out
And this
to Caleb at this channel because we've learned a ton from him. And even the desk I'm sitting at was inspired by one of these videos. It was like the ultimate live streaming studio kind of thing.
Nice.
And he had a similar kind of all-in-one YouTube studio.
Yeah, Peter McKinnon did one of those too, but it wasn't as nice as I envisioned. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'll have to send it to you later on because it was an entire video studio on one cart. And, he does a lot of
Nice.
these cool hack, technology amalgamations together, and just a real neat sort of channel.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
see, and I love doing stuff like that. I love the tinkering. Like I rip microphones apart, and I made Frankenstein microphones. I love that stuff. Like to me, that's what I want to do. My audience is slowly catching on to a lot of that. But I mean, in reality, they're like, no, just give us the microphone reviews and be done with it. So
Yeah.
as I grow, I'm slowly pushing towards these other like DIY kind of sides because I mean, how many microphone reviews can you watch before you're done, right? And you see a lot of these larger channels like the Linus Tech Tips, the big tech channels, they don't just review. In fact, most of the big ones don't even review anymore.
Hmm.
It's all about creating content within the sphere rather than focusing on just that one thing. So that's the long-term goals of this channel, and I'm thinking it should be a lot of fun pushing my audience to like this stuff.
Yeah, it seems like such a balancing act, right? You get something that hits, and then there's a real incentive to just do that thing over and over, and beat that dead horse. But we're human. Like we want to do other things. Like you're into other things.
Well, it's funny too because I've got a distributor that sends me stuff, and the one thing he sent me some really cool headphones that are for DJs. I did a video on those. Man, it was the worst performing video I've ever done in my life.
Oh, really?
And but it's just one of those like your audience wasn't ready for that. Okay, so now we have to slowly move them over towards the kind of outlying stuff. And yeah, you're right, balancing act indeed, because you're always trying to keep your faithful happy while also introducing them to stuff, to things that they're like, oh, that is kind of cool. And yeah, eventually it'll come around once you have enough people to actually um, kind of prop up those different ideas, then it becomes a little easier. I look
Sure.
forward to that day.
Yeah, you get different segments and groups of people that might be into different things.
Yeah.
Did the video do okay for you? How did it
It
perform?
actually performed better than I thought it was going to. And because I think it was so close with the voiceover sphere, it was one of those that people were really receptive to. I'd already done the video. I don't know if you can. Oh yeah, you can see the white voiceover booth that's right behind me on my video. I
Right.
did a video. It's the Isovox 2.
Mhm.
And a lot of people were still clinging on from that video and think, this is a $3,000 solution with the microphone. How can this dude do it for 280 bucks? And well, that's the answer to that question, right? So it's kind of I think that helped propel it. That helped kind of make people perk up when they saw the video come up.
Yeah.
So
It was
yeah.
still striking listening to your tests that you did that the Isovox, it had that characteristic, and you described it in a few words that didn't, that didn't really, I don't understand, but it was distinctly different than the maker pipe solution. I was surprised.
This is the NT2A in my kitchen in the blanket booth. Now we have the NT2A in the Isovox. And you're going to notice this has a little bit of that boominess, that muddiness, that boxiness that comes along with the Isovox, which you just EQ out.
Well, and that the fascinating thing about that is that sound that you're listening to is called boxiness. So, um, when your voice hits walls and comes back at you, that's the reverb, right? So, if you treat all around you, you'll still have some frequencies that'll be able to bounce back. Mainly your low end will always bounce back. That's why they have bass relief for the corners. Now, in a box like that, that's the only thing kind of mulling around inside there. So that comes off as this kind of really boxy, almost bassy sound to it
Hmm.
that people hate.
They don't
So
like it.
when you no, it muddies it. It makes it sound muddy and kind of you can EQ it out easily, but that was something you didn't have with the maker pipe booth was there's no frequencies bouncing around.
Mm.
And you had just enough protection to keep the reverb from coming back into the microphone. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned very briefly, like how you might improve on that concept. What do you have any ideas on if you had to do version 2 of the Maker Pipe sound booth, what it would be?
Better blankets. I really cheaped out on the blankets. Oh my goodness, because I was trying to keep this as low as possible. There were two for $30 at Princess Auto, which is yeah, I wouldn't buy blankets from them ever again. That I would also like to kind of work a desk into there, like just kind of a couple maker pipe across,
Mhm.
put a little something down there so you can put a laptop in. Um, Quality of life stuff, maybe a light, get an LED light in there somehow. So the little things that just make the booth a little more cozy and a little less dark. It was dark.
Yeah. Were you in there with your phone and your flashlight trying to,
It's,
but yeah, you could even do LED. I mean, you could RGB it in there and get
oh
a
yeah.
mood going.
Oh yeah. And I was thinking they've got those fairy lights that my daughter likes.
Oh
You
yeah.
could put those fairy lights up and it would look really awesome in there.
Right.
Maybe if the blankets weren't red too, then also an issue. But
Yeah.
you get what you get when you don't pay much money, right?
I mean, I don't know. You tell us because like, you tell me, I mean, a blanket is a blanket. There's perceivable differences in the different sound blankets and moving
Oh yeah.
blankets. Yeah.
Um, it's I mean, there's a ton of factors that come into it. With moving blankets, it's the density. So sound is vibration, right? So when you talk, you're just creating vibrations in the air that your eardrum picks up and your eardrum perceives it as a sound. So uh, you have an ADDA converter, which is your brain. Your brain is taking all of those vibrations and turning it into speech and sound. Now, when you put a blanket down, what the blanket does is it dulls out the vibrations. So it's not like it's blocking sound or absorbing sound. It's just taking those vibrations and making them less.
Mm.
Then it hits a wall, comes back, makes it even less more so. So it's the density and the heavier the product, usually the better result you're going to have because it slows the vibrations down even more and even more till you're only getting one or two frequencies back, which the mic doesn't even discern, or at least the human ear can't. Um,
Mm.
that's probably the easiest way to explain it. So,
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. And I think there's the real, anytime I've bought any type of sound treatment, it's been the cheap
yeah.
blankets, right? The moving blankets. And it's like, yeah, you can tell it's making a difference, but what do you think is the sweet spot? Like where's the value to performance sweet spot in your experience?
Yeah, that's a tough one because when you're doing stuff like that, usually there is a fall off on price to performance. However, like I have a good example is the black sponge I have around me. It's called Oralex. That's the cool looking black squares that you put on the wall.
Oh yeah.
They cost $500 Canadian a box, and you get, I think, 24 squares out of it,
Whoa.
but it's really dense foam. So it works really, really well. However, you can also buy the squares from Amazon for, you know, $5 for a bundle of 12. And they also do the job. So it's really hard to call based on the environment that you're in. Like the environment I'm in here, I couldn't put the Amazon squares up. They wouldn't work.
Hmm.
However, if you're in a closet, the Amazon squares would probably work just fine.
Hmm.
So it's kind of seeing your setup and kind of, evaluating what you've got and doing the best you can with it. Also, if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking they want to do something like that, Rockwool is the way to go. The insulation, get some of that, wrap it with some anything, put it on the walls, and that will do much better of a job than any cheap thing you get from Amazon.
Oh, wow. That's neat.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Rocksoul Safe and Sound is what they call it in Canada. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, if you can get some of those Rockwool, yeah, it's also fire retardant, which is the nice thing. That stuff, I actually have the panels right behind me are Rocksoul Safe and Sound, and they've got a small little wooden frame or MDF frame around them with some fabric. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm seeing. That's cool. That's a great tip. Yeah, I can imagine that's because it's pretty dense, right? And
Oh, it works 10 times better than the $500 box of Oralex. And I have 5 of them. Yeah, 5 of them in my studio, and they do most of the heavy lifting of audio.
nice.
So, and I don't have a perfect setup, but what I do have is pretty damn good comparison. This room rings out like nobody's business when it's not treated. And well, as you can hear, sounds pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great. And I guess it depends on your performance expectations too. Like, the professionals on a different level as far as the, small
Yeah,
details.
mixing audio, doing voiceover. Like, I have a friend who mixes music, and he has a very different need for sound dampening. He needs more of the bass relief in the corners and stuff because he uses bass guitars and stuff. But for voice, yeah, it's relatively simple to get it set up.
Cool. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
I saw you did I'm going to go
if
back
it
to the
does work,
video
there's no.
because you did something cool. Was it a microphone stand that you had?
Oh, that was awesome. That was the bane of my existence for a day or so. Yeah, you can see it sticking up there.
Yeah, I want to find a different shot, but it was a little tricky.
Yeah. So what I was gonna do, because I wanted about a 1 foot long, so he did wasn't standing right up against the wall.
Right.
Like that's what I wanted him to be able to stand more center of the booth. And so I did up a 1 foot long piece of pipe, and I put the insert in on both sides. And instead of just using like a small 6-inch piece of 3/8 threaded, I used a full foot long thread so it could attach to both sides. So if you put $1,000, yeah, there it is. If you put $1,000 microphone on that, you're not worried about that insert. You're not worried about the weight of the camera over time. You just and it worked incredibly well. Um, and it was, yeah, just an insert on either side. Threading it was a pain,
Hmm.
but I threaded it through one side and then I jammed it into the threading on the next side. And so it was rock tight.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see how that'd be tricky if you were going all the way through. Um,
It worked well. And then I just used a Dremel to grind off the excess. So, and then basically, here, let me get this down here. Um, because one of the problems was if you didn't jam up against something or if it didn't tighten down, you would end up with a microphone that was constantly twirling,
right.
right? You needed it to have an end. So they also have these bolts that come on Rode PSA ones. I had a couple extra, so I threw those on there as well, so you can tighten up against the microphone,
Oh.
and the mic it would come to a dead stop, and it would stay right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, little piece engineering I had to do in the end.
Yeah. That's a great idea. I've run into that issue before. I use just a normal bolt, but having like a knurled big thing that you can tighten
Yeah.
down with your fingers would be super helpful.
Yeah, they really, really helpful. I don't know where I'm pretty sure you could have these manufactured or 3D printed. It's a very simple do you guys work with 3D printers over there?
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
we 3D print our the minis that you got that you prototyped
Oh,
with.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we got a whole
yeah.
bank of 3D printer Ender threes, just spitting out
Nice.
minis as fast as we can go.
Yeah, because you don't need a lot of pressure on these. Like, it doesn't have to be, tight enough that you need a wrench.
Right.
Anything just to yeah, it's a fantastic little, way to make sure that both your microphone and or camera are secure. Because I use these for cameras too.
Nice. That's a good tip. I think that's a great hack because there's somebody's going to find something similar out there. I'm sure it's a common hardware item. There you go.
Yeah.
That sort
Yeah,
of thing.
that's the thing.
Cool.
And I actually called Rode because I lost a couple, and I just said, "Can you send me a handful?" And they did. So I
Okay.
had like a handful of them sitting here, and because when you lose these, by the way, if you work with boom arms and you lose one of these, all of a sudden your microphone just starts kind of swiveling around where it is, and it can
Right.
be a real pain in the
You're
butt.
doing
Yeah,
one of these.
yeah. Especially when your microphone weighs 2.5 pounds and it just keeps flopping down on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Road's probably not going to send everybody, some breaded nuts, but
Yeah. You can try. I mean, they're a nice company. They're really, really nice. So,
well,
but yeah, that was kind of the pride and joy from the build, that boom arm, because that was kind of the one thing that just took it from being a box and turned it into being a voiceover booth where you didn't have to bring a stand in with your mic and all that crap. You could just literally hook your mic up, unplug it, and you're good to go.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I could see holding up like a stand or what would you call it? I'm thinking like a music sheet stand, right?
yeah, yeah, yep,
Something like that you could incorporate in a lot of possibilities there, but um
yeah.
yeah, fantastic job. Thanks so much for doing the video and sharing it
Oh,
with
my
your
pleasure.
community. It was great to see.
When I do that all in one YouTuber stand, I'll be back in touch. I think I have enough gear left over that I can probably do it without getting any extras from you, but I'll be back in touch. That's gonna be a cool build. And that one's gonna need all of the planning in the world. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna need all the planning, so that'll be fun, though. I think that'll, I've even got the camera with the teleprompter and all that. That'll be on there. And yeah, I think that'll be a fun little project and probably take me a little bit longer than a booth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
but well worth it. And we're always here from you, yeah, either Jake or myself if you need help planning it, want to bounce some ideas around. But
awesome.
but based on your build here, I think you got it. I think it'll come out great.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty fun. Right on, man.
All right. Well, thanks for the update and it was nice talking with you.
Cheers, brother.
Bye.